Please welcome Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi. And actor, producer, activist, Connie Britton.
Hello, everybody. Speaker Pelosi, Madam Speaker, it's such an honor to be here with you today, and I would just like to take the lead with everyone in our audience today to say thank you to you. Thank you for being such an inspiring leader for women and all people in this country and around the world. You have broken through so many barriers and so many glass ceilings, and you do it with grace and wisdom and intelligence, and you light the way, and you have done so for your entire career. So I want to say thank you to you as we start.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I accept every compliment I receive on behalf of the House Democrats who make everything possible that you suggest. But I want to say what a pleasure it is to be with you. I'm a big fan. I've admired your commitment to a better future for America, for America's children, for your talent, for your beauty, and the rest, and just how focused you have always been. I've been a big fan for a long time, so this is a treat for me.
Okay, well, this
to have Connie with us today.
Gosh, I'm done. Bye. Well, that takes us right into our conversation today, which I think is such an important one at the moment. You know, you have advocated for empowering women and girls throughout your career, and I've tried to speak to that as well whenever I have the chance, because I know, and we know, that around the world, economies will thrive when women are empowered to be a part of them. And so this is just a really, really important topic, and especially right now. And, you know, I think the pandemic has been so disproportionately rough on women in particular. You know, women were a lot of the frontline workers. Women lost their jobs at a faster rate. And of course, the responsibility of staying at home and doing all the domestic work and taking care of the children heavily fell on women and that burden. And access to health care. And you were saying backstage that you always tell people never to start with Roe v. Wade, but I think as we acknowledge the importance of healthcare for a strong world, healthcare for women, we have to acknowledge what's happening right here in our own country. So I would love, and I'm sure everyone would love to hear from you too, a little bit about how we can understand and then get across the importance for gender equality and gender equity for women to have reproductive rights and reproductive health care.
Well, thank you so much. That was quite a question, multifaceted, all coming back to one place. Our motto that we have with the Democratic Women in Congress: when women succeed, America succeeds. And the same holds true of every other country in the world. Let me first thank Global Citizen Now for the invitation to be with each and every one of you here, and whoever else is zooming in or whatever. Global Citizen Now has got to be commended for being an answer, not only an answer, a path for us to find common ground. Too many of the discussions we have always end up being one side or another, but Global Citizen Now has seen that we have to find our common ground. We must have a path. So I thank Global Citizen Now for what you do, for the invitation to once again that was last time I was in Central Park with my grandkids, Metallica, Eddie Vedder, you know. now we're here, but whatever it takes, they have a way of bringing people together because, you know, they know where there can be common ground, whether it's music, performances, the arts, whatever it is. That's a place where we laugh together, we cry together, we're inspired together, we dance together. Never do too much dancing, I always say. And again, you forget your differences. So let us thank Global Citizen now for what that they are doing. People always ask me this question. What would you do first if you ruled the world? I like that question. What I would do first, second, and third is the education of women and girls. Universal education of women and girls throughout the world. Whether we're talking about what it means to an individual, to a family, to a sense of community, to a country. The advancement of women, their education, they're using their own discretion as to the size, timing of their families, working in their religious tradition with their doctor, their family, their husband. Is so very, very important. And again, to engage, to have micro-lending and all kinds of other ways for women to participate. The one other thing that I would do, and I said this at COP26 to a big women's meeting there, we must end corruption in our economic systems throughout the world if we're going to open a path for women to succeed. Women are by reputation and more ethical, this or that, but nonetheless, still there are obstacles to success and the timing of it all. You asked about Roe v. Wade, and I say don't start with it because there's so many, shall we say, areas of common ground. Healthcare, education, economic security, saving the planet. Let's start with some of those, and when we have our common ground, then move on to that, because it is still, for many people, hard for us to find common ground. Now, let me just tell you about me. My daughter, my baby daughter, Alexandra, is here. I don't know if she is. Oh, she's back there. 5 children, 6 years, and 1 week. 5 children in 6 years and 1 week. So I feel pretty passionate about giving women a right to decide their own situation in terms of their reproductive health in every aspect of it. When I had this fight with my colleague, I get really steamed up about this. That's why I say don't start with getting steamed up. Just
Don't start.
Start with where you find your common ground. When I have my, shall we say, conversations with some of my colleagues on this, you know what they say? One of them said this on the floor of the House. Nancy Pelosi thinks she knows more about having babies than the Pope does. Yes. But that's what we're dealing with. So I'm just saying we want to be respectful and
People are really confused.
What would be the word? What's beyond respectful, but you know, so now that we have this situation with the court, this is something so important to women, to families, not just to women, but to families across America, because this court has decided to dispense with precedent, that this court decided something already. And overall, this court has been committed to not this court, but the Supreme Court, privacy. So if you dump precedent and you just completely eliminate privacy as a right in the Constitution, then you are doing great harm to the freedom of our country. So this is about freedom. But when you talk to people and say, your freedom is on the ballot, what about, am I going to be able to work? Am I going to be able to have health care? You know, the kitchen table issues are so dominant. But this is the first time, Connie, that this is one of the times, significant time, right now, when kitchen table issues, healthcare, cost of prescription drugs, pay the rent, all of those issues come together with the issue of freedom. A woman's right to decide is a kitchen table issue, is a kitchen table issue. So this is something that we should be able, as women, as members of families, men who care about, and so many of you are here, care about women being able to make decisions, families working together to be able to make decisions, know that we have to make sure that privacy in the Constitution, precedent in the courts, is something that is respected. It's a big fight. But as we do that, for example, in my own district, my Archbishop has decided that I would not be able to receive communion. I find that heartbreaking as a practicing Catholic, and when in our family, I have 5 children, as I mentioned, in 6 years and 1 week. We had probably 150 years of Catholic education, my husband and I, and the children. Our faith is very important to us. So this is not insignificant to me, but the fact is that it's up to women to choose. It's up to families working together to choose. So getting to COVID. With COVID, the screen has been pulled back because women have suffered so much, millions of women out of the workplace because of COVID, as Connie said so clearly, staying home to watch the children, okay. So that's why with our president, and I'm so proud of him putting forth, we haven't finished it all yet, but there has to be something transformative that happens in our country about affordability of childcare, about home health care, for in case you're caring for a senior or a sibling, in addition to child care, about universal pre-K. All of these things enable not just women, but dads, men and women, to be able to participate in the workforce. But unless we accept, not only accept, advance the recognition that the children are so important to us, yes, that we must at least measure up to what other developed countries are. I saw the former Prime Minister of Norway here, and my neighbor in San Francisco is a Norwegian Consul General, and when he has visitors come, they always want to know why we're not doing as much for our children as Europeans do for their children in other countries. So as bad as the pandemic was, let it be the transition, the threshold that we cross that says this can't happen. Women are not able to go to work to support their families, their economic security is threatened, their health benefits are threatened, and the rest. Why? Because they do not have child care. They do not have universal pre-K. They do not have child tax credits to help them economically. So we have a real opportunity. Every challenge is an opportunity. And this, your question is all-encompassing, and I hope that I show some path that we are working on in any event, and that our president has taken the lead on.
Thank you for that. So thorough. And you know, that brings up to me the fact that when we talk about losing our privacy, losing our reproductive freedom, we're not taking into account the children, and the children for whom we have not put into place any kind of support through, through universal health care or, paid family leave,
Family and medical leave.
Yeah, medical leave. And so it just will continue if there are born children that are where there's no accommodation for them. These cycles of abuse will continue and poverty will continue. That is the opposite of what we're talking about today. We are talking about trying to raise up economies around the world. So Could you speak a little bit to how we together, in the face of what we are looking at right now with the Supreme Court, in the face of what we're looking at right now, where these laws are not being passed, the support is not being put into action, what do we do? How do we create unity? How do we bring these things into a unified way around the country and therefore around the world so that we're not fighting these battles? How do we find each other in unity?
Well, Abraham Lincoln, my favorite Republican president, he said, public sentiment is everything. With it, you can accomplish almost anything. Without it, practically nothing. Public sentiment. So the people have to speak out. But for some public sentiment to weigh in on public policy, people have to know. People have to know. So that's why when I said to you, don't introduce the conversation with something that is in disagreement. Try to find common ground first, because people have to know the mischaracterization that they have out there about why someone might choose contraception, in vitro fertilization. That's off the list too. You know, that's taboo. And all these things, if people know this is how your privacy is threatened, then they might speak up. Elections have ramifications. I don't want this to be a political issue. I wish it would go away. But I do think, as a political issue, but I think people should know you cannot take this to the extreme. I mean, right now in Texas, it's not only against the law, they have vigilantes who could turn you in if they, what's that all about? Where did that ever become part of America? We had the Prime Minister of Greece the other day at the Capitol to make a speech about democracy. It was 200th anniversary of Greece's democracy, and 1 year because COVID, it's this year. And basically he said something that was very important to our country and to all. People have to know that they are worthy of every right, of every opportunity, of every, whether it's healthcare or fairness in the economy and the rest. People have to know that they are worthy. And we want people to feel very worthy about what their rights are and what the expectation should be in a society. A middle class is the backbone of a democracy, of our democracy. I think the middle class has a union label on it, that's the backbone of our democracy. But if our democracy is going to be strong, more people have to be able to aspire to reaching their economic fulfillment so they can care for their families or themselves. This is about, as I say, this isn't just about family planning, it's about contraception. It's about, young people may say, I'm not planning a family right now, but you might be interested in contraception, I don't know. But people have to know these are all on the table. I do believe that there is an element in our society that uses the abortion word, which I hate to use. In my generation, we didn't use that word, but that they use that word as well. We don't like that, but to cover up for what they're really trying to do is no contraception, no in vitro fertilization, no family planning, and any of that. This is too very, very private for it to be left up to politicians, Supreme Court justices, governors of states and state legislatures. It's about you. It's about your family, your timing, or your contraception, whatever it happens to be. But it's a fundamental privacy issue.
And I think what you were just saying about us feeling and knowing that we have to be worthy is what we're talking about today, because we need to know that our women and our girls are worthy. And that's why it's so important that we lift them up and work tirelessly to make sure that we have gender equity and gender equality, and it's like, because women around the world need to know their own worth, and the men need to know their own worth.
Men too.
Yeah.
But let's see, one of the first involvements I had with Global Citizen was about climate. Environmental injustice has been a terrible injustice throughout the world. I just met with some of the honorees, and they are so impressive from all over the world. And whether we're talking about women in the indigenous community, really important to be in touch with people in the indigenous community. Every place I go, I ask to meet with them because they know what it means to have, one of my first bills I ever passed in Congress a long time ago was about protecting the rights of the indigenous community, and that we as the United States could not vote for any project on a multilateral development bank unless it was an environmental impact statement was made and that it was made known to the indigenous community. So they stopped a lot of things because of that. But that's really important because many of the champions, they're men and they're women, but many of them are women. Some have been killed for their courage in fighting for their environment, for their children. Clean air, clean water, ending asthma, and the rest of that. So that. The other is being worthy in terms of these young women, whether it's child marriages, whether it was fairness in the economy, whether it's safety. And I wear this ring about the Afghan women. I always keep them close to my heart because we have so much more we need to do for them. I just came back from Ukraine a couple weeks ago, and to see what the Russians were doing to little girls and their moms and their grandmothers was just like, what are you thinking that you could do this to women as an act of cowardice? You're supposed to be in war and you're going after little girls in a nasty kind of a way. So again, we have to realize what the prospects are, inoculate against them early, and when you hear these awardees and the different aspects of how they are dealing with it, whether it's economic, whether it's health, whether it's indigenous people, whether it's, I think you've seen much of what they've had to say. They're not only entrepreneurial, they're courageous. They're courageous. That's why I want to get rid of corruption, so that opens the door further for them. But in terms of what we can do, public sentiment, just making sure, not taking sides in a religious debate or anything like that, just making sure people know how important it might be to you, any subject, whether it's saving the planet, which is on a short fuse right now. Thank you, Global Citizen, now for doing what you have been doing for a long time, 10 years, and whether in any of those aspects. But again, to take it to your point, COVID just shed a terrible light on so many of the injustices, and that challenge gives us opportunity to do more about it. Are we going to have questions from the audience or not? We don't have time.
Are we? I
talk too long. I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Well, but I have one just in our last 2 minutes. For people who are feeling hopeless right now, for people who don't know how to proceed and don't know how to see the world in a way that feels like it's going to lift people up, what would you say to them? You have 2 minutes, Speaker Pelosi.
Be hopeful. But one of the sources of great hope for all of us are our young people. Their fresh eyes on the subject, their freedom of past approaches to things is really something great. But since we are here with you, let me just say, one of the things that gives me so much hope are the arts. The arts are a place, as I said earlier, that is a place where people come together, laugh together, cry together, are inspired together, forget their differences. I'll end where I began on that. The poet Shelley once wrote, the greatest source for moral good is imagination. imagination, creativity, to put yourself in other people's shoes, to understand them. And so I do think that young people, the arts, thinking in ways where we find common ground that are unifying. I mean, I could pick a fight on any number of subjects, and I do. But the fact is, we're trying to find a path that is unifying and not necessarily defining our differences, but finding our common ground. We have to. For the children, for the future. Now, I'm a politician. Proudly, I say that. And I say, Connie, I say to my women candidates, this is tough. This is not for the faint of heart. Thank you for the courage to run. You get in that arena. You're in the arena now. You have to be able to take a punch. You got to be able to throw a punch for the children.
Oh my God! Oh my God! I mean, and I hope you all noticed, she dropped the mic. Madam Speaker, thank you so much for being here today and inspiring us and sharing your wisdom. You are extraordinary. Thank you all for being here too.